host, Indiana's own Dana Black. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. I do apologize for the tardiness. We'll make it up to you with an amazing conversation. All right, I hope everybody is ready for the weekend. This is the last show of 2019. I'm taking 2 weeks off so I can, celebrate the New Year's and celebrate the New Year's. Because that's what's important to me, celebrating the New Year. But anyway, I know that there's a lot of holiday things happening. You guys, please be safe. Do your thing. So, check it out. I got a rant, but it's going to be a quick one today. It's going to be a quick one. The disciplinary board the disciplinary commission suggested that Attorney General Curtis Hill should lose his license for 2 years, his law license. It's just a suggestion, but I have a feeling that our governor and the leadership in our state house is not going to abide by that suggestion. It just seems to me like people are not listening or paying attention to the needs of our women in our state, and they're just allowing anybody to get away with anything. We have a long history of some of our elected officials violating a female space, a woman's space, just because they feel like they can. This is not Neanderthal times, people. We're not cavemen. Keep your hands to yourself. But since you don't, you don't think that there's going to be any repercussions, I think there should be. I applaud Mara for standing up and saying, okay, the young folks may not have enough confidence to go ahead and challenge the Attorney General, but she did. And I'm proud of her for that, for standing up for ladies, because she didn't have to. She could have just stayed silent. But Attorney General Curtis Hill wants to make sure that he has power. He believes he has power. Well, we got a couple of candidates on our side that are looking to take him down. Whether you're Senator Talion, Team Senator Talion, or whether you're Mayor Winesapple, does not matter. We have candidates that will be running against Curtis Hill this year, so make sure that you pay attention to every race in the state of Indiana. Every race. We're not a state that is comfortable, nor should we be comfortable with gropers, I said it, trying cases. So enough is enough. Let's make a change at that AG office, all right? I know y'all excited about the impeachment. I'm going to get to that later. That'll be at the end of the show. Next thing I want to remind everybody is the census. The 2020 census is way, way, way too important. If we want redistricting done right, if we want to make sure that our voices are counted, if we want to make sure that we have funds in our communities, we need to make sure that we are accurately counted. So y'all see I got the apply online up here. I've got the link on the page. So if you are looking for a job, they're paying some good money. Don't forget, they're paying $25 an hour with paid training, weekly pay. You're getting it every week. So they're going to hire by the end of December. So we're at the end of the month now. So make sure you fill out your applications, get them turned in if you're looking for a little part-time work, or if you anticipate overspending in the holidays. I know Hanukkah has like a whole bunch of days they're supposed to buy presents. Christmas is just one day. So, you might need a little extra money. And my buddy Trina is having a hire day December 21st at the Brightwood Library at 25th and Sherman. So if you're not comfortable with using the internet, or you don't want to put your name on the internet, but if you are listening to me, you're on the internet. So, but anyway, if you want to fill that stuff out in person, or you need to take somebody, December 21st, they will be hiring people, taking applications and helping you fill out, because again, as much as I talk about voting and running for office, the census is really, 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 really important. All right. That's it for now. I'm going to get to the impeachment. Don't worry about it. It's coming. Okay, check it out. One of the things that excited me about 2019, me personally, was all the amazing young people who are making a difference. There used to be this thing where people talked about you got to kiss rings and wait your turn and all of this old nonsense. Nah. 2019 showed us if you are a candidate who is willing to care about the issues, care about the constituents, and you run a good race, you can win. Ask Ethan Evans. I know Jim Merritt is still going. I'm not Jim Merritt. What was his name? Mike McQuillan. I done forgot you already, dog. Mike McQuillan. He's still trying to figure out what happened. Ethan Evans, young man, never ran for office before, unseated the leader of the minority party in the council. It can be done, y'all. And because I'm so excited about all the young people that got involved, that momentum, I believe we're going to take over in 2020. So tonight, right here on Turn Left, I have another up-and-coming young person who is ready to go. He's not waiting his turn. He's not standing in line. He's doing what he feels like he needs to do the way he needs to do it. Y'all, welcome to Turn Left. A good friend of mine, I can actually say that now, because we done hung out a few times now. I believe we could share a drink together if we were consuming.
Which I'm not.
We're not.
Yeah.
We don't do that. Welcome, Andy Jacobs Jr. to Turn Left, y'all. Welcome, my man.
Thank you.
How
Thank
are you
for
today?
having me.
Well, you know, it is my pleasure. It is my pleasure. Okay, so you got to speak up because, you know, the people...
Speak up.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Like that.
Now, there are a lot of... Yeah, there are a lot of... Do that.
There.
Yeah, you do that.
Okay.
So there are a lot of people. There's a lot of women who are running for Susan Brooks's District 5, Congressional District 5 seat.
That's true.
Oh, man, bruh. What made you do it? What made you say, I'm going to Congress?
Well, I think that the next Congress is going to be a very interesting Congress. There are a lot of things that we need to get to work on.
Okay.
And we haven't been able to do that for a while now because our attention has been focused elsewhere.
No, really?
Yeah.
There's nothing going on, right?
Healthcare is going to be on everyone's minds, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's something that, well, I had a little bit of experience with the healthcare system. Mine was very different because it was with my dad.
Okay.
Going through that, and he was on government health insurance.
Okay.
So my experience with that was seeing that it can work.
Absolutely.
And as difficult as the process I went through with him was, we never worried about how it was going to be paid for.
Okay.
And I can only imagine what that would be like.
Oh,
to
man.
go through that emotional toll.
Absolutely.
And at the same time feel that financial pressure.
Absolutely.
So that's near and dear to my heart, that it is unfathomable to me that we do that to people.
Absolutely. So you know what? That to me, I'm glad I started with that with you because I want you to tell the people who you are and where you come from. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Indianapolis, Indiana. Was born on the north side at St. Vincent's Hospital.
Okay.
I attended Washington Township schools.
I'm sorry. Did you say you went to North Central?
I did go to North Central.
Did you tell me that you graduated from North Central?
I graduated from North Central.
That would be my alma mater. He's a Panther, and we're Panthers for life.
Oh, yeah.
That's what's happening. We're probably graduated at different centuries, but...
Hail our Panthers, hats off to thee, to our colors true we will always be. Red, white, black, united we stand.
All of that. Ah, man, I love the Panthers. So we were reminiscing. Okay, go ahead.
Well, then, I stayed here in Indiana for school. I went down to IU Bloomington.
Okay.
And then I came back up to Indianapolis for IU McKinney Law.
Okay, so you
That's
actually...
my education.
Okay, so when you were younger, right? Listen, we know you have a mom and a dad, and we know who your mom and your dad are, because Kim's still around.
She
But
is.
talk about how when you saw what they were doing in the community, how it influenced you to be a public servant and go into law, and the things that motivated you.
Well, when I was a kid, I thought my dad had the coolest job in the world.
He did.
He did.
You won't get no argument from me.
He did. And the way I saw his job was that he got to talk to people. He got to talk to people about what their problems were, and then he went and he found solutions to those problems.
Okay. Because it's one thing to complain about him.
Yeah.
And it's another thing to actually put some work in.
It's pretty easy to complain.
Yeah, it's easy. We can do that all day.
And I just when he died, and I went to his funeral. It really, I had known because people will tell me a lot that what he meant to them, and that he changed a light bulb for them, or that he raked their leaves, or that he figured out how to get them their disability check, or that he did this, that, or the other. This whole range of things, that ways that he touched people's lives. But at his funeral, where there were politicians, Republicans and Democrats, saying things about him it was out of place in our current political climate.
Absolutely. Statesmanship is gone too, so it's kind of some of that.
But it was very meaningful to me to see that.
Okay.
Because it was the culmination of this man's life. And with a funeral, I've been to, well, with an older dad, I've been to a lot of funerals.
Yeah.
And it's always interesting to see exactly what they're like, because funerals come in all kinds of different
flavors.
Variety. It's like weddings.
You ever been to a Black Baptist funeral?
But,
more like a party.
Yeah. It's strange because when you lose a parent, you contemplate your own mortality.
Mm-hmm. For the first time.
For the first time, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened to me when I was 23 years old.
Wow.
And I understood then that the mark that he'd left on people and the efforts that he'd put forth to help people and to elevate them and to promote leadership from other people and to do good work for the community.
Okay.
Left behind something that was more valuable than anything else he could have done.
And so now you want to take that, and it's not about building on his legacy. It's about creating your own legacy.
Absolutely.
It's about creating a vision, seeing a vision, and accomplishing things the way you see it, not necessarily how he would have done it. Yeah. And see, that was very important to me, that when we talk today, that we talk about who you are and what brings what forces of nature you bring, right, to the table. Because we can sit around and talk about the influence of our parents or non-influences of our parents. I will say, to speak to you wholeheartedly, I wouldn't be sitting here today had it not been for James and Catherine adopting me in their 40s. So I too had older parents, but because of the foundation that they were Depression-era parents, you know, my mother was older than everybody's mama. Everybody's mama. But she gave me a sense of what hard work looked like. She gave me a sense of what it means to care for other people. My father went to work every day. He came home every night. So I understood what stability looked like. And I crave stability. If I don't have it, I'm out of sorts. I know I'm a little wacky anyway. And if I don't have that, I'm out of sorts. So the reason why I ask that is because I don't want people to sit around and dwell on, right, the junior.
Sure.
We want people to focus on the junior, but there are aspects of your parents that guided you.
And
right?
It is parents too. I should take a moment to mention that my mother was very influential in my life and continues to be influential in my life because she's still around.
Winning Emmys.
Winning Emmys, absolutely. And it's from her that I learned a lot about hard work. She broke into the newsroom in the 1970s as a woman, and she was very successful.
Absolutely. I was a kid watching her going like this. I was that kid.
She raised my brother and me, and although she stepped away from the news desk, she continued to do work in that industry, and she would take us along with her, and it was that was the first because my dad retired when I was young. So, you know, he mostly he went around for a lot of that, and
he was
talked
still
to people,
backslapping and just kind of kicking it.
Yeah. But it was my mother really who I saw doing work. And,
wow. Well, you know, women just hold it down. Barack Obama just told all y'all, if you just put women in leadership all over the world, things would be different. So yes. Well, I appreciate that. So now you're in high school. Was there anything in high school that was going on that made you was there a political future then, even in high school?
Oh well, I was in high school during the Bush years.
Ah, yeah.
So that was on a lot of people's minds.
Right, because you didn't know what was going to happen to you after you graduated, right? Because there were wars going on, and
when I graduated, it was in 2008.
So look at you.
Yeah.
Your whole adult life.
Yeah, I walked into the world of Barack Obama. But and in fact, Barack Obama was the first president I voted for.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
It is very cool. It was the only president I voted for, actually.
Okay.
Because
Yeah. Well,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, there was another election, though.
Well, but I didn't vote for.
Oh, okay.
If I'd voted for 2 presidents, I would have voted for Trump. See, but I didn't because I've only voted for 1 president. You see what I mean?
No, I'm confused completely.
Because my candidate didn't win.
Oh, but you all got it. Okay,
Yeah.
That had me. Listen, I can be slow sometimes too. Okay, so yes, you've only voted for 1 president.
I have.
Not person running for president. I had to.
Yeah, I voted in.
I'm like, wait, what? He did not vote for Trump.
I did not.
Did you not? Please understand, he did not. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, well, in that case, I've only had a chance to vote for 2 presidents.
Oh yeah.
I just had Clinton and Barack because it's been Reagan. Bush won one the first time I voted. I voted for Dukakis, and then the rest is crap. Anyway. Yeah. So what was going on in high school? Was there any influences there?
Well, the other people around me. I mean, great friends that I have to this day that were very active. I mean, I can remember back into middle school. That was when we had the invasion of Iraq, and that was even then with we weren't even teenagers yet, and we knew about it, and we were talking about it.
Right.
And it was very influential to watch that unfold, and especially coming from a household with my dad, who was so adamantly opposed to military intervention, and to watch the country unify behind George W. Bush, which they did. He had 90% approval rating
after 9/11.
Yes, he did.
I mean, he did. He made the bullhorn on the rubble. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, that was a good play.
And to watch the country unify and the destructive consequences of that, and the misguided.
Well, the outright lies.
The outright lies.
Outright lies.
Outright lies. The birth of the Patriot Act, the birth of the acceleration, at least, of the NSA spying apparatus, the crimes that were committed with the human rights violations.
Oh, absolutely.
That the Abu Ghraib prison and at the Guantanamo Bay with all of the waterboarding and all of that. So that was how I came into my adult understanding of politics developed amidst all of that.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
And it was not a good time because I had the fortune of having that perspective in my household that this is wrong, and the very strong voice that said from the beginning, this is wrong.
Right.
But then that was difficult because it took a while for the general public to catch up because people were understandably very afraid in that time, and we were unified by fear.
Yeah, and see, just to stop there, I did find it incredibly interesting. So I was like in my early 20s. So 9/11 happened when I was 21 years old. Was that right? 2001? Yeah. So and I couldn't understand the level of fear. I could not. I personally couldn't understand that level of fear because I understood America very differently, right? So I understood that, shoot, we ain't innocent. We have done quite a bit of, garbage to a lot of different people in the name of, and fill in the blank. And then as an African American woman, because at the time I was still grappling with the sexuality thing, so that we'll throw that in there later. I saw a history of, terrorism, right? I saw what terrorism looked like, so I couldn't understand where the level of fear came from when it's been in your face every day for the entire time that we've been on this continent, or America has been, or even before it was a country. And that was the part I could never understand was, where did that level of fear come from? Why were they so afraid? Do you think it was like the death of innocence, or that's
there are a couple of perspectives I have on that. One is that being a young teenager at the time, I've latched onto that view.
Okay.
That rebellious sort of counter to the mainstream.
Okay.
that, oh, well, Donald Trump's, America's not so great either, right? And I ended up talking to some people who lived closer, lived in D.C. Or lived in New York when it happened, and their perspective on it was very different, of course, because they said, well, we saw it happen, and I can understand that fear there. But to speak more generally about it, 9/11 marks a moment where if there's a moment when America stopped being great, that everyone talks about what make America great again. That was the moment when someone finally when America finally took a hit.
Since 1812.
Yeah. Or well, especially since World War II.
Right.
We had dominated the world, and there was no question that America was the power.
Of course. But and that power came at a cost, and that was the part. That was the caveat I felt people never wanted to acknowledge. Like there's you got to look at the full view of it, not just the narrow view of it. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to necessarily live anywhere else, and I understand what the greatness of this country can be, because I wouldn't fight so hard if I didn't believe who we could be. But you also have to be mindful that I sure wish we could have done some things differently, but we didn't. So now we have to figure out how we move past it. And these folks just said enough is enough, because I remember watching an Oprah show. And on the Oprah show, they were like, "Why does the world hate us?" And I was like, "Because you've been given propaganda, just like other people are given propaganda, and you didn't bother to look. Okay, what's behind the curtain? And when you don't look behind the curtain, anything can happen. Anything is liable to happen. That's why we're gonna talk about the impeachment later."
I studied law in China.
Did you?
In Beijing, I did. And
wow,
one of our misperceptions about China is that they have absolutely no political autonomy, and they're all so afraid of their government that they won't say anything. But I was there with students, and students have, well, they have these virtual private networks. I don't know if
VPNs.
VPNs.
Yeah, I'm an IT chick.
They know about the young people over there know about that. They get news from around the world.
Right.
And they were able to speak intelligently, they were
prohibition
informed.
doesn't work. Right.
Exactly. Information flows into China, and I am sitting and talking to one of the students, and we kind of veer into that territory of the problems with the Chinese government. And she slaps me right back in the face with, well, we never lynched black people.
Whoa. I bet that was heavy.
It was, because it was just I'd never really framed that understanding of my own culture, my own country from that perspective, that the criticism from that perspective of a country that we criticize.
Yeah. And that was what was so weird for me, because I couldn't help but to see it any other way. Like, I mean, we it took a long time for men to recognize that women's brains actually function, and we should have some say in our government. My brain never deviated from the fact that the indigenous people were here at Thanksgiving, and then what happened? Where'd they go? They teach you how to, fix a turkey and cook up some corn, and now they gone. Where'd they go? And so, I mean, I was never like, and I never had the luxury, I guess, of being the default, and just being in a space where I only had to see, I was always looking at somebody else. I never saw myself or people like me in superpower until later, right? So it was natural for me to see that, and I bet that was a eye-opening experience spending time in China like that.
It was.
You speak the language? No. Mandarin? Any of it? No.
It's a very difficult language to pick up.
Yes.
And fortunately, a lot of people over there speak English.
Oh, good. Yeah, because we haven't thought it. Some of us don't think it's a good idea to learn more than one language. We only want to speak American.
I went over there. When I was over there, we had opportunity to go to the People's Congress.
Okay.
And speak to a representative there.
Okay.
He comes out and he spoke to us for 2 hours in Mandarin with a translator. And at the end, we were able to ask him a few questions.
Okay.
And one of the questions somebody asked was about his education. And he said, I went to Harvard Business School for 4 years. And we're all thinking,
man.
So you speak English.
Yeah, very well.
You're just choosing not to.
That's an option he had. Man, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. See, now, a lot of people don't understand how important, you're telling the story about going and studying law in China. We are in a global economy. Sorry, folks, we're not going back to the days of the United States being the dominant economic force, the dominant trading force, and after this particular president leaves office, we're going to have so much that we're going to have to actually repair in order to create those relationships again. But here I'm listening to you talk about how you have spent time in the country that is definitely by far our greatest economic rival, right? How do you think those experiences of studying law in China will be able to help you when you're elected in Congress and we're talking about trade, we're talking about, how do we come together with treaties and things like that?
Well, the same way it would studying and spending time in any other culture. You can learn about a place, but until you've been there and I by no means am an expert on the situation or anything, but just moments like we just talked about, moments where my preconceived notions of their culture were challenged, and to understand their perspective a little bit better from having been there. For one thing, their society, and we joked about this. It's a kind of a libertarian dream, minus the political. Because there is almost no. People generally, at least in the city. Now I know that there's a difference between the cities and the rural areas, but at least in the cities, people were for the most part left to their own devices.
Really?
And to the point where
my buddy Sean Shepard would love that.
The best example I can think of is railings. There were all kinds of shaky, loose railings, things that if you leaned on them wrong, you could fall and seriously injure yourself.
Wow.
Here in the United States, we would say absolutely not. Tort law, litigation.
Right.
You're going to sue somebody over that. In China, it's just sort of like, well,
you shouldn't have leaned against it.
You shouldn't have leaned against that.
Well, and see that's amazing to me because as a person who is definitely on left leaning, to care for other people is kind of like the core, I think. In my opinion, the core of who we are as Democrats. And the idea that you wouldn't fix the railing to prevent someone, whether you or somebody you never met, gets hurt is just crazy. I mean, it's like, why wouldn't you want to do that?
Well, it's a little bit more of a. I think libertarian is the right way. Of course, carving out the political aspect, but you're responsible for your own actions. You're responsible for your own safety. That sort of, and as a result, a lot of the people are very resilient, and they will look out for those types of situations. That being said, there were people that I saw there on the streets who were maimed horribly. In all kinds of ways, and then there's nothing for them but to sit on the street outside of the big tourist attractions and ask for money, missing limbs, horrible burns, and there's nothing there for them.
Yeah, see, that doesn't sound cool to me.
No, it is, and that's the other thing about it is that just because you come to understand that there's a different situation happening in a country than what you thought you understood, doesn't necessarily mean that you agree with it. And one of the things we had to be very, very conscious of the entire time that we were there was that we were being shown a lot of the time things. We were being shown things. And while there were some times that I was able to go off the beaten path, when I did that, I was just a stranger in a strange land. It was hard to understand where even where I was because Google doesn't work over there. And I didn't have a cell phone when I walked into
I don't know what I would do without my Google Maps either, man.
Being in the middle of somewhere in Beijing, without any identifying landmarks.
Right, and if there are, you can't probably read it anyway unless you could read the characters.
And then all of a sudden walking into a neighborhood where there are families living in spaces smaller than this room.
Wow.
On
That's
top of
heavy.
each other.
That's heavy.
Just in a huge city block of thousands.
Wow. And they're stacked on top of each other.
Stacked on top of each other. And then you look up and there is this building, looks straight out of Star Trek right there.
Right. Because there's still technology, there's still advancement, there's still ingenuity happening. It's just not being filtered down to the other billion.
That is the most profound thing that I realized about China is 1 billion people.
Yeah, that's a lot of
and
people.
Not even 1 billion, so 1.7 billion.
Yeah.
They're narrowing in on 2 billion people.
Yeah. That's a lot of people.
To provide for all of those needs, the challenges are they're very different.
Absolutely.
And in a lot of those cities, they're living on top of each other.
Absolutely.
And I don't understand how it's difficult for us to make judgments on them.
Right. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, you've gone to law school. You got your education. I know that you work in the prosecutor's office.
I do.
Congratulations on that. I remember when that happened for you. Because we need, honest people on that side of the law as well. And then we all heard that Susan Brooks wasn't running.
Yeah. Yep.
Talk about what your campaign for that office is going to look like. What issues are you going to hone in on? You've got, 5-6 counties that you've got to connect with, and we already know that Indianapolis is not the same as Hamilton County or Tipton County or any of those counties. Howard County, I think you got a little bit of Howard County in there. Mm-hmm. Talk about what your campaign is going to look like and how you plan on reaching out to the voters.
Well, the challenge, the biggest challenge is the diversity of because a lot of people will simplify it into, well, you've got Hamilton County and Marion County, and it's true that there are a large chunk of voters there, but that's the number one thing that going into it that I realized about this district is that diversity of issues, and that the issues that the bulk of the voters are facing don't necessarily align with the issues that all of the voters, all of the constituents are facing. So it is a challenge. It will be a challenge to balance those interests. To find ways to provide for some of the more abstract political goals of the southern part of the district, but then also find ways to address the basic needs of some of the areas in the northern part of the district. I was in Marion, Indiana, and I learned up there that they have a serious problem with childhood poverty. And homelessness, and that there just isn't the economy is falling apart because there aren't the jobs that they need. And
I mean, and you can say that almost with Kokomo and Muncie and Anderson and some of our smaller towns and cities where they're struggling for industry and economic development.
Yeah, it's the Rust Belt problem.
Yeah.
And that was this is an area that I spent a lot of time with in college. I was a history student, and
that just made me smile. I love history because it tells you so much about who you are and how we got here. People act like now is it. Like, this is the end of it all. We're here. Nothing happened before. But everything that we're doing now is predicated on something that happened in the past. But go ahead. I was having a Facebook fight.
I agree with you completely about that, and that's why I studied history. One of the great privileges I had studying history was to have Professor James Madison, author of The Indiana Way, and I took some of his lecture courses, but I had a seminar with him on the history of the automobile.
Okay, that was fun.
It sounds like it's going to be fun until you start thinking about the history of the automobile. The history of the automobile is that at one time, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio was the epicenter, the Silicon Valley
of
the world.
Wow.
Automaking was the technology. We take it for granted now, but there was a time when automobile was the computer.
Okay.
And we were the center was like Detroit, but we had plants across Indiana that made parts.
Right.
And we had expertise, and we were the place to go if you wanted a cutting edge job in technology. And that changed.
Overnight.
It changed. It changed. It would last for a while. Lasted for a while, but then we started selling it off. We started getting competition from Japan, and we started to lose that. And also we got computers.
And automation changed a lot of that. Yes.
And it's not just automation. It's that we had a new challenge, and our most brilliant minds were drawn to a different industry, into a different area, and
I hadn't thought of it like that.
And then the automobile industry was left to be run as just an institution that had always stood and.
Right, but we really didn't infuse it with the best and the brightest like we had before.
Our greatest innovators went over to.
Interesting.
At least that was my insight into it. We came up with a lot of debate about exactly why did it happen, why did we lose the jobs, why did. And it's a combination of a lot of different factors.
Sure, absolutely.
I that made the most sense to me.
That's actually
about the same time, most of our really innovative minds started moving
some. Yeah, they started going into tech and started going into even renewable energy is another one, which is to me is about tech. So, but I hadn't thought of it like that because I often thought about, and I'm sure a lot of us thought about, well, manufacturing went overseas. And labor was the reason why, because the manufacturers can find cheaper labor. I didn't think about the ingenuity that went into creating this thing, and the greatest minds that used to go, I'm going to go design, I'm going to be the designer of the engine, or I'm going to be designer of the body, or I'm going to be the designer of the fabric. They're deciding that I want to code instead, or I hadn't thought of it like that. That's pretty insightful. Keep talking.
It's also important to recognize with that industry. It's a huge topic, and it's an important topic. It's a critical
because
topic.
It's critical to what everybody is talking about. We need jobs.
We do need jobs, and it's not just. And this is one of the things I hear. Well, we will retrain everyone. We'll give new education, but I think that misses the point of the manufacturing job. And the point of the manufacturing job was that you had a college education, or you didn't need a college education. You had a high school education.
Right.
And you could walk down the street, get hired at a factory, and make enough money to support a family on one salary.
On one salary.
On one salary. And you could send your kids to college. On one salary, working a good job. And you didn't need it to be re-educated. And that's one of the most difficult things about this, is that there are so many parts to this problem. And one of it, I think, is that people moved on with their the other thing is, though, what they created and what you were getting at before: automation. And that has been this science fiction word in politics. And it's something that I've been very concerned about. In fact, you want to talk about reasons why I'm jumping in this race is because I do not hear people talk about automation. Even on the presidential stage, you get Andrew Yang talking about automation, but he's the only one up there who has any idea what he's talking about.
Dang.
He does.
You better drop your opinion.
No, he does. And he's bringing to light something very important, because in politics we have the stagnation right now on this issue, because we have very close relations with the labor unions and the Democratic Party. Those are very old relationships, and
that we still want to manifest and cultivate.
Of course we do. And and to me at least, what those relationships are about looking out for the best interests of labor and how we're going to get them jobs and how we're going to get them food on the table, and simply to. But then even on the Republican side too, they don't necessarily have the close relationship with labor, but they are with the labor unions. But they want to have a relationship with labor. In fact, you look at Donald Trump's support; a lot of them are people who they don't believe in the unions anymore because they don't have a job.
Yeah.
So they don't have a union to be a part of because they're out of a job, and they come from these families that would have had a job in any one of these industries. So when I see that no one is really acknowledging this, I think that it is because it's a lot easier to promise people we'll bring it back. We'll go back to the way it used to be. And
that's not going to happen.
And I don't think it's going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
And that's not to say that there is no hope for any of these people, but it burying our heads in the sand and simply saying that we'll get manufacturing back, first of all, ignores the fact that we still do a lot of manufacturing in this country.
We do.
And that's the automation issue.
Exactly.
Because the productivity of an individual worker is astronomical compared to what it was in the
automation.
The 1900s, and because of automation, lights out factories.
Right.
In fact, one of the things I learned when I was over in China is that they are trying to now retool their economy and brace for massive unemployment because they're worried that automated factories in Africa and in Germany are going to start undercutting their labor costs, and they're going to start losing jobs from China because it's going to be cheaper to have a robot assemble all of those things.
Well, and here's the other part, the part that we don't want to acknowledge. Not only is it going to be cheaper to have a robot, it's actually going to be more accurate. Yeah. Now, and that's the part that we have a hard time with because that means you don't need me. In fact, with one arm, I can get rid of 5 people. And if you're of the mindset that I need to look at my bottom line and how to maximize my profits, the most expensive cost is labor cost. And if I just need to have an engineer to run the machine and an engineer to fix the machine, because it's going to inevitably break down or maintenance it or whatever. And here's why this is so important to me as well. And I want to, because you're speaking on something that people don't want to talk about. They just want you to, sometimes people want to be force-fed what they think they want to hear or what they think is going to happen. But what in the last 20 years makes you think that plants are going to open back up again and hire 20,000 people? Yeah. Now, I do know that, GM has a lot of employees here and there are roles that they haven't been able to fill, but those roles are not assembly line workers. Those roles are at the higher education level. And so for me, it is we have done our nation and our citizens a disservice to them by not preparing them, by not anticipating and not giving them the proper skill set that they require to go to the next level. I don't necessarily believe that everyone needs to go to college because I would love to have a personal electrician or a plumber. I'm just saying, I have a mortgage now, not an apartment rent. But at the same time, we're so focused on test results that really mean not a whole lot versus actually expanding the mind and making people free thinkers and giving them different concepts and different ways to think so that it's easy for them to be displaced when they are not prepared for. Everybody's not going to be able to work out, but doggone, if you are good with your hands and you can, take the trinket and make something out of the trinket, then I can train you to put a computer together. I can train you to put a server together. I can train you to put a network system together. I can train you I can train you to do anything because you are not afraid to work with your hands. But if I don't let you know those options are out there or that there's no need for them,
well, that's part of the problem. You just stated it. We are heading in the direction of a world where there is no need for it. And you can see the evidence all around you, and this is why it's been a little abstract for people, and that's the other reason why it's been difficult to talk about in politics, because no one wants to hear about that future, and it's also very difficult for people to conceptualize. But you see it in self-service checkout situations like
which
that.
I refuse to go to.
But here's one of the things. Here's one of the really scary things that's on the horizon: cognitive automation.
I'm sorry, what?
Cognitive automation.
See, on Turn Left, you learn new stuff on a regular basis. So now we're going to learn about, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to learn about cognitive automation. Go.
Cognitive automation are computers that think for us. Computers that make decisions, like IBM's Watson. This is a great example. IBM's Watson. They use it to help diagnose cancer patients. And here's the question. Of course, there are people who say, well, we'll always need the human touch. But if you could talk to a doctor who has seen maybe 1,000 cases of cancer in his career, or you could be diagnosed by a machine that has seen 5 million cases.
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not there yet because I know with Google and their autonomous vehicles, they still help black people. No. And until we get the racism out of the algorithm,
right.
I'm not quite. I feel you though. I get what you're saying, and logically it makes a lot of sense. But unfortunately, you still have humans that are programming it. And as long as automated cars are not seeing black people, I know that there's still a need for some human touch.
That's one of the problems is that humans aren't necessarily programming these computers.
What?
They are and they aren't. It's difficult
so it's
to get
the
into.
base.
But I'm talking about machine learning.
Okay.
Computers that they are programmed to acquire information, process that information, and then come to and modify their behavior.
Okay.
People out there may have seen videos online of, it's like a GIF of an animated character running and jumping over things, and then the text on it tells you that they didn't program it to run, they just gave it the parameters and gave it an environment in which it could learn to run, and then by repeated attempts the machine developed a process by which it could animate the character to run.
So I know a lot of my listeners right now are like, okay, wait a minute. He ain't talked about all of our core issues yet. We haven't touched on education. We haven't touched on the environment. We haven't touched on healthcare yet, which we will, because I know how passionate you are about that. But one of the reasons why I wanted to let you just kind of go with the direction our conversation was going in is because I'm sorry. I don't mean no disrespect to my seniors, because y'all know how much I love my seniors. But how many 70-year-old elected officials are talking about cognitive automation? I want you to understand, when you think about who you are choosing, I'm not telling anybody who to vote for in District 5. I'm so glad I don't have a vote this time because it's tough. But you need to have someone who is going to be forward thinking about how our country should be moving, not what we used to do or what we are doing now. Here you have a candidate who is talking about where we are going, whether we go kicking and screaming or you go willingly, but this is where we're going. And when policies are being written and the concern for the humans that inhabit this country are taken to task, you need someone who can be forward thinking. And one of the things I also noticed about you is that you're very measured. See, I'm a flippant girl. I talk, honey. Words just come out my mouth. Sometimes for good, sometimes not so much. But I noticed that as we have this conversation, you're very measured. So it's not even that, which is an unusual trait in our young people. I don't mean no disrespect, but after 256 characters, ain't no telling what's coming out. But you're very measured. So not only do you, I'm gonna say that I have a feeling that has to do with, and I get it because I had older parents too, that you were raised, even though you were going to school in the 2000s, you had the education of someone who was raised in the 40s and the 50s. Like I said, I was raised in the 70s, but my mother was born in 29, and so I literally was raised by a Depression-era parent in the 70s. So a lot of her values were put down on me. So this is a very unique marriage that you have. You have the forward-thinking technology and where we're going as a nation. Let's get going this way, but you do it in a way that is measured and thoughtful and not just flippant. I just wanted to point that out in case, people are like, well, he ain't talking about the issues yet. This is a new candidate. You kind of have to feel him out and feel, what he's talking about and understand, the larger picture, not just, listen, I'm telling you, he's dropping knowledge today if y'all paying attention. All right. Now, but this is a political show, so we got to get to your issues.
That is the issue.
Okay.
That is the issue. That is at the heart of so many of our problems, is that and I have heard my entire life, we don't know what the future has in store, but we'll just educate our young people. We'll give them lots of education. That'll brace them for the future. It gave us a lot of debt. Gave us a lot of debt. And it's preparing us for a future where a lot of our skills aren't going to be needed.
Yeah.
Being needed. And this is what is frightening about not talking about this issue, is that if we continue to ignore it, the future I see is that we're heading towards a society that is divided very strictly into the haves and the have-nots. And the have-nots will have very little. And it will be desperate, and it's not a good future.
Right, if we don't change
it's
course.
It's not a good future unless we change. But changing course involves having a very, very frank and honest conversation about where we're going and what the role of how our economy even looks in the future. What does a post-labor economy look like? What do you do with all of those people? But most importantly, and this gets to where we're
post-labor economy.
Post-labor economy, because when we look at it now, a lot of our jobs are moving into the service industry. It's one of the only places that we haven't been able to automate is somebody to wait on someone.
Right.
How and not to
of course
disparage.
We're not saying that.
Like
we're not saying that at all.
How does that mesh where you have the have saying to the have-nots, the only value that we have for you is to serve us in this capacity, to literally serve us. But then even there, you have the automation of trucking that's coming, and how many millions of jobs is that going to eradicate?
We just saw a trucking company shut down and fired people just last week. And they were on the road and didn't even know what was going to happen.
Clever people. I remember when I was in college, I read an article in The Economist that estimated that 50% of the jobs that existed at the time would not exist if the people who were working fully understood the technology available at the time. So I believe there's no question that we're heading towards a society that is post-labor. And what does that mean for people who are in labor now? And that's the question that we need to be asking. But most importantly, to get back to what you're saying about what is it going to mean for people now, what does that transition look like? Because it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to flip a switch and all of a sudden we're going to have all this wonderful stuff. There's going to be, and not just about having the stuff, it's about these centuries old, thousands-year-old ideas about the economy that all of a sudden are flipped on their head. And are we heading for a catastrophe, or are we going to find some way that we embrace education, we embrace art, creativity, we embrace
what happened?
This freedom that we have,
freedom of thought.
Because, and I've had this conversation with a lot of people about labor, and I understand that there's a lot of satisfaction in building something with your hands. I do a lot of work with my hands. I like to do woodwork. I like to build little machines and things. Love it.
Yeah, and I can't draw a straight line with a ruler.
It is very satisfying, and there's a lot of enjoyment to be derived from it. But there's work, and then there's also things that you derive. And I've always understood that my enjoyment of building things and this, that, or the other is a privilege. And it's not something that I need to do to support myself.
Gotcha.
And I've had this conversation with a few people in labor who say, well, this is terrifying to us because this is our way of life. And my perspective on that is that why does it have to be that? Why does there have to be a segment of the population that we say, there are the haves, and they can have education, they can have yachts, they can have travel around the world. They can have opportunities to learn things about other cultures. They can live this incredibly privileged life that's supported by the larger population of people who have to work to make their way in the world. And it's just challenging that notion. But now that we have this technology and we're developing this technology that I see it as freeing people. As freeing people from this system that is perpetuated for hundreds of years, that keeps people and says, don't leave your hometown.
Okay, you said the magic word for hundreds of years, because I was waiting, because I was like, but dog, it's been like that forever. Like there's always been this, when you're an African American, as James Baldwin said, you live in a perpetual state of anger because you see everything that you're talking about that is going to happen has been already happening. Yeah. It just now it's no longer going to be visible and divisible by the race or the religion or the gender of the individual. It's going to be divided up, and it's always been about socioeconomics, and people just don't want to embrace that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I will call out racism every chance I get. Homophobia, misogyny, all of that. I'm coming for you. Don't bring it. But at the same time, I recognize those are just tools for the bigger, greater things.
Yes, and that's that was the purpose of racism in the beginning of America,
anyway.
Was to say to poor white people, at least you're not black.
At least you're not black.
At least you're not black. You may not have anything.
Don't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw out, but you think, and that's the thing. I use this, and I say this all the time, and I can never understand why people don't understand it. Not every white person in the South owned other humans, right? It was the 1%ers.
Oh yeah.
That owned other humans. But the 1%ers were so brilliant with their tactics, they convinced the other 99% of the white folk who didn't have much of anything to fight for them, to keep this system in place that was going to directly harm them. Because that means where you could have made money, picking cotton as a laborer on a plantation, no, now they have free labor, and that's an economic opportunity that you will not be able to have. And the 1%ers were able to convince the poor masses that at least you're not black, and if you work hard enough, you'll be just like me.
Yeah.
I hate to disappoint people because, I know some people believe in Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, Tooth Fairy, all that other stuff.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, I know.
They're not real?
No. but we do that to ourselves as a society. We believe that we are going to be them, and so let's uphold this particular system. This ain't a new thing. This has been going on for years. But what you're saying now, sir, and if I'm hearing it correctly, is okay. What used to be a small segment relegated to maybe our minority population and maybe our women, it is now going to encompass a vast majority of white Americans. If you do not have the necessary tool set that you need, or you're not forward thinking enough to protect your own personal economy. Did I get that right?
Yeah. I think that's a really good perspective on it. But I think it's also important that that I mentioned that what I'm trying to do here is paint two very different perspectives on where we could be heading. And where we actually will head is going to be somewhere in the middle, because there's no way that within the next 20 years we're going to get to a society where we don't need labor. We're going to need labor, and there's no way that we're going. Well, I should. Let's hope that we don't end up in 20 years in a society where people are so desperate that that we have disorder and chaos, and we have the wealthy living in
on the moon
castles. Yeah, on the moon.
On the moon, because
exactly.
that's what they're trying to get to Mars. So we're talking about technology. How does, in your opinion, climate change and how we take care of our environment contribute to what could be a good thing moving us forward, or something really bad?
Well, the really bad is that the potential effects of climate change are to make the planet inhospitable to human life.
So they can go to Mars.
That's not a good option.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. And I've been thinking about this a lot, because there are people who don't believe that that's even possible.
Yeah, no.
And that is crazy to me, because it is and I mean, it is crazy to think that you cannot, because a lot of these same people say, well, once you've made your choices, you have to live with the consequences. And to think that you can't have consequences on this type of a scale.
It is astonishing. But again, I'd like to simplify it and say, if you take a glass of water, it is a glass of water until you add a chemical to it, and it is something different. If you continue to add chemicals to our environment, it's a thing. The atmosphere is a thing. The ground is a thing. If you continue to add these toxins, it no longer is what it was supposed to be. It's very simple.
Well, here's a great question for anyone who doesn't believe in man-made climate change, that man is incapable of changing its environment.
Yes, because only God.
What about nuclear apocalypse?
Oh, wait, huh?
We have the capability, and we've had for a very long time, to completely decimate the population of the Earth and to make it completely inhospitable. Now, that's very aggressive.
Well, I know you've seen the movie War Games from 1982, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I know.
I know War Games.
Yes. I mean, mutual destruction is the reason why we haven't done it.
Yeah.
In 82, for the young people war games. Go watch it.
Was that Matthew Broderick?
Yeah, I think so. Matthew Broderick, I think so.
Yeah.
82 they were telling us.
With the floppy disks.
Yes. And the big ones, not even the little ones. It was the 5 by 6.
Floppy ones.
Yes.
But I just that's something to think about is that people would say it's impossible for man to change to change the
because women we only restore and make things beautiful except for Tulsa Gabbard. I mean I didn't say that. Ooh. I didn't. Go ahead.
Well, let's continue. But it is, and then then that's interesting that that's divided into people who are just contrarians who want to say scientists are wrong, and then just conspiracy nuts who are saying that the government is using this to manipulate us so that they can send us off to camps or whatever they're going to do. Well, that's one of those issues that's
there's some camps around the country.
A few years ago you'd say, hey, no government's not going to send anyone.
Did it before, they'll do it again.
Yeah.
Or reservations. You can call them camps, reservations, whatever you want to call them. But, our government is notorious for, moving bodies of people to a space and saying, you stay there. And, oh, by the way, we will take your children so they can assimilate with us. I mean, sometimes I liken the European conquistadors as the Borg for all my Trekkie people. The Borg. Assimilation is, resistance is futile. Assimilation.
Well, the Borg are supposed to be like that's exactly what they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be white culture and the expansion of it, an allegory without any consideration to
the culture that exists.
To the culture that exists, exactly. Yeah, we'll take the best parts of it and we'll make productive use of the physical.
Science fiction tried to tell.
Oh, science fiction is great. I'm a big fan of science fiction.
I'm sorry, I do that. I go off on tangents, but climate change is a real issue. It sounds to me like you are definitely in for a way for us to mitigate and try to slow it down as best we can.
Slow it down being the key word because it's happening. Now, but it is amazing to me too that this is happening. It is happening.
It is happening.
It's happening. And just to be clear about what I'm talking about, it is the change in average temperature. And it is not just that it's changing, because a lot of people say, well, the climate always changes. Yeah, we know this.
Yeah.
The alarming thing about it is the rate at which it is changing is too fast.
Right.
It's moving too fast. Something that we ordinarily would hope to see or we would expect to see on a scale of thousands of years is happening in hundreds of years.
Yep.
And what does that mean?
Yep. And see, a lot of people who are making decisions about how they produce and dispose of waste are in their, I would say, 50s and above.
Yeah.
And they recognize, and they're so selfish in their decision making because they won't be here. They will not be here when the real destruction rears its ugly head. And I find that astonishing that people could be that selfish in their decision making when it comes to how we treat the environment. I'm half 100 too. In June, I'll be half 100. And, my time is almost coming to an end. Well, hopefully not. Let's not do that. but I also am very aware that I have nephews and they may decide to have children. And I would love to be able to leave the place better than when I found it, which is what my mother taught me as a young child. I don't know if y'all ever were raised by old school parents, but they tell you when you get done with something, put it back where you got from and make it better than when you saw it the first time. That's how I was raised. So, and when you think about the environment, and I'm going to segue into your favorite discussion topic.
Let me offer up a different perspective on this too, though. Who is generating all that trash?
It's us. I mean,
all of us, including young people.
Yes.
And that's one of the things, and I find a lot of pushback on this from people. They say, no, this is the corporations are doing this to us. No. But this is a human problem. Yeah. This is a problem of our consumptions, and we're all guilty of it.
Well, I was going to say, that's when, your supply and demand and your free market is supposed to come into play. If you don't like something, don't buy it. Well, I am guilty. Normally when my guests come in, and I forgot today, I normally offer them a bottle of water. I am just as guilty because I will offer you that plastic bottle of water. But again, as consumers, we're supposed to change. I know Jalen Jaden Smith, Will and Jada. Yeah,
sure.
He's promoting the water in the bottle like we used to get milk cartons. So the paper bottles, because paper biodegrades, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, there are options out there. We just choose not to seek them or...
Which is just understandable, too, though, because the other valid side of that argument is like, it is hard to be alive in general. And now you want me to jump through a million different hoops to make sure that I have
water in a paper carton?
No.
Hey, we cantankerous. Oh my God. Oh Lord.
And this is also one of the reasons why I think that there's a little bit of a problem with people my age saying this is the most pressing thing and this is so important and our future is at stake. Is that then? And this isn't true across the board because there are a lot of people who are looking very critically at our consumption habits and the types of things that we're doing. But this is not going to be something that we just pass some regulations and corporations fix it for us.
No,
that's not how we have to
demand
climate change. We're going to have to, and we're going to have to change the way that we live. We're going to have to change. Have to change a lot, and that's I think one of the reasons why there's a lot of resistance to.
Because we don't like change.
We don't like change.
And again, when I'm used to it. Change happens every other week. But then I also went into IT, and so I know that change happens every 18 months. So we're talking about environment. I think this is a nice segue because how the environment contributes a lot to our personal health and well-being. And I know that healthcare is a big, big concern, a big issue for you. I've heard you speak on it on multiple occasions. Talk to the listeners about what you see and how you think we should move forward when it comes to providing quality, affordable health care. And I will say it again, not affordable insurance, but affordable health care to citizens.
Universal health care.
What?
Universal health care. It is the solution. It's the solution that has already been embraced by the developed world. And we are behind. Mm-hmm. And people say, how are we going to afford it? How do they afford it?
Yeah, it can be done. Wait a minute. I hate that question. You can afford tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans. You can afford a war machine where we spend more money on weapons of mass destruction than any other nation on the planet and the next 5 combined. But you're telling me we can't find money?
Let me add another one of those to that list. We can afford to pay private health insurance companies more than it's going to cost to do it through the government, but we can't afford to do it through the government,
right?
Because that's all of the projections show, and they say they roll out these numbers and they say it's going to cost $30 trillion. It's going to, but you look at the projections on what we're going to spend on healthcare already. We're going to spend more than that.
Absolutely. I mean, and again, I have a hard time with insurance companies determining what the best healthcare is for me based on their bottom line. I don't even understand that.
Yeah, and people say free market. I heard somebody
on
Fox News talking about plastic surgery.
You better be careful watching that channel. That stuff might get in your brain through osmosis.
Well, I do. I like to watch it.
It can stick sometimes.
I like to watch it, and I like to read about it, and not to mock it, not to.
Oh, you're sweeter than me.
Well, and I think it's important because if you're not taking to heart what the opposition is saying, and you're not allowing yourself a moment to sit in their shoes and say, what is it that they're worried about? Why is it that they're saying these things? Then how can you possibly represent people?
This is true.
How can you claim?
So how do you debunk the lies that they're being told? Because I've watched Fox, and I've watched them just genuinely hand out the wrong information.
Oh, for sure.
So how do you combat lies like that?
You meet them on that level.
Okay.
You don't come at them and say, you're an idiot, I can't believe you believe that, this, that. And that's so much of our political discourse across the lines, is that there is so much hatred and so much attack. Mm-hmm. And part of how you cross that line is by listening.
Okay.
And it's one of the great traits of leadership, listening.
Okay, so healthcare.
People have to understand that it's going to cost less. Mm-hmm.
And we have to be able to articulate that.
And it's very difficult to articulate because it's a very scary number. $30 trillion.
But
terrifying number.
What is the full number when we use insurance companies?
I've seen 32. I've seen 34.
Okay.
And that's every one of those stuff. And that's
when you're
talking about how much money we're going to spend as a nation over 10 years. There are people who do a lot of good work on it, but
of course.
They're going to come up with all kinds of different numbers.
Okay.
But it is my understanding that there are consistency in studies that when we provide it through the government, we spend less money overall over the same period of time than if we do it through private insurance. And the reason why is that the administrative cost of private insurance can be as much as 10%. 10% of the money that you give to the insurance company is going to go to paying investors. It's going to go to be paying, the people who are running it, middle management, this, that, and the other. And with government-run healthcare, it is 2%. 2%. So you shave off 8% of fat by switching.
See, to me, that's got to be a Republican talking point.
Huge savings.
You're shaving 8 points off?
8 points
Republicans, why ain't y'all? Oh, wait, never mind. I know the answer. But go ahead, keep talking. That's good. I like the economics of healthcare.
Well, there was a joke on Saturday Night Live. They were saying, why is the health insurance? Why are they fighting so hard for you not to have it? And they're afraid that you're going to like it.
Exactly. And even Mitch McConnell said we can't let the ACA pass because once we give it to them, they're not going to want to give it up.
Yeah.
Really? Imagine that.
Yeah.
Imagine, and I like you, healthcare is one of those concerns because honestly, if you can't get up and do whatever it is that you need to do, there's no way that you're going to improve your personal economy. If you don't have quality mental health, you're not going to be able to absorb the information that you need to better yourself.
There's a big one.
Yeah.
Mental health in this country is in a crisis mode.
It is because first of all, we've stigmatized, and I've been just as guilty of that because I had these parameters of what I could and what I couldn't deal with, and I know as a human that I can take care of anybody who has a physical ailment, but I don't know if I have what it takes to deal with someone who has some type of a mental health concern, and that's not true anymore. Because I've met more people and I've talked to more people. I've actually had my behind chastised too because I was inappropriate and unaware and very, very ignorant in some of the things that I had said. But now I'm like, oh, okay, wait. This is just like a broken leg or like a blood clot. We have the ability to treat this once we properly diagnose this.
I'll step on a limb here.
Okay.
Mental health, gun problem.
What you know about that?
Okay.
I was there. I watched you. I went with you.
Yeah. That's what Republicans will say every time we say we need to, and we do need to have common sense, gun control measures.
But my mama said common sense ain't so common.
They are. This is an area where I 100% agree with Republicans. There's a mental health problem with people who pick up a gun and use it to commit violence. And where I disagree with them is their unwillingness to put forth any resources to address that problem.
No, they're not doing that.
So I challenge Republicans out there. Put your money where your mouth is on this issue.
They won't.
And put psychologists into schools to talk to kids because the school shooting thing. That is, there are the kids who are violent and come in and do it, and there are also the kids who pick up a gun and shoot themselves.
Yeah.
And that problem is even more widespread. And I would even argue that almost all of that falls under the same umbrella of suicidal tendencies.
I'm with you when you're right because we had a saying, suicide by cop.
Yeah.
I mean, there is that.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of those situations are. Or even you go back to the Columbine situation, they turned the guns on themselves in the end. Yeah. Going
down a blaze of glory. Well, you know what? That's an hour, and I try not to.
Sure, and that's.
And you know what? I gotta tell you, I could probably sit down and talk to you for hours. So we're gonna put that on the calendar when you're taking a break from your campaign. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your vast amounts of wisdom with our Turn Left listeners, because I want y'all to understand one thing. I know that there are some people who always want to categorize individuals by, this particular group that they're in, or this particular generation that they're in, or demographic, or whatever the case may be. I want you guys to maybe even consider looking at the person for who they are. we are very lucky in District 5. And I don't live in District 5 anymore. I'm in District 7. But we are very lucky in District 5 that there are candidates who come from a multitude of perspectives. Each perspective is just as important as the next. Okay? So here you have a young man who's putting himself out there, and I know from conversations, people have asked him, why is he running against all the women? It's not the point. I mean, don't get me wrong. I am the first person to say I need to elect more. I want to see us elect more women. I want to see us elect more women of color. I want to see us elect more LGBTQ plus folk. You get no argument from me. But don't discredit him because he doesn't fall into any of those categories. Give him a listen. Find out. I learned things. Cognitive automation. See, I'm there. I'm Googling that and learning that. Just take the time to get to know the candidates. And that's what we're going to be doing here on Turn Left. And this is our 4th year doing this. This is our 4th season where we're going to bring you all the candidates from all over the state. I will have candidates who are running in primaries against each other. But what I advise everybody, when you talk about why you're running, you have to remember that when we're done with this primary, that we're all Democrats and we're all on the same daggone side. So be kind and be forthright in why you're running. And be respectable to the people that you're running against. All right, real quick on this impeachment. I ain't gonna stay long because we way over today, but it was a good conversation. Sorry. So yes, the House impeached because he is a crook and a criminal, and he's done a lot of things that he shouldn't have done. But I need to talk to the vast majority of my listeners in Indiana, and we already know that in Indiana, African Americans only make up about 9% of the population. Hispanics, Asians, and all others, and I don't mean to be rude, we are less than 15% of the entire state of Indiana. So I want to talk to the other 85% of my Hoosiers, whom I work hard for. You're going to be disappointed. The level of disappointment that's coming your way is something you probably have not experienced before. And that disappointment is the ideals of our nation and what our Constitution stands for and what everyone takes an oath for. They're going to fail you because they're not going to live up to it. Your government is going to fail you. I know that this sounds crazy to y'all. Y'all like, ain't no way the government gonna fail because we got checks and balances and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah. Because see, just as it was easy for us as a nation to take the indigenous people and remove them from their lands, create these treaties that we ultimately would break and dishonor, just as we were able to take humans from one continent, put them in a boat, right, and pay for them and have them do our hard labor without actually paying for it, just like we were able to take in the 40s our Asian Japanese Americans, remove them from their homes, cause them to lose their life savings and everything that they had worked for, and put them in internment camps. And a Democrat president did that. One of our greatest Democrat presidents, right? I want you to understand what you're about to feel as we watch this impeachment process is what all of us have already, those of us in the minority communities have already felt. The amazing disappointment of a government that is supposed to be looking out for its people. An amazing disappointment in a government that is supposed to be honoring the history of who we are and what we're supposed to stand for. Because when it's all said and done, Senator Mitch McConnell is mocking you. Senator Mitch McConnell is saying, yeah, I'm working with the White House on this. I'm not really getting ready to do anything. And if I have a trial, I might. And, whatever. He's going to treat this like he's treated the other 200 plus bipartisan bills that have been put in front of him. They're going in file 13. My old schoolers, y'all know what file 13 is. It's a trash can. I don't want you to be upset, sad, or somehow or another disenchanted with the fact that you are ultimately going to be disappointed. They're not going to, if they have a trial, it's not going to be a fair trial. It's not going to have all the information that you want. And they're not going to vote to remove him. So what does all this mean, Dana? Why are you killing me with this? And, no Santa Claus on Christmas and Why are you doing this, Dana? Because I want you to understand the importance of why this is happening. This is happening because of how we cast or do not cast our votes. This is happening because of our action or inaction of being involved in our civilian government. Real talk. These people were elected to office. They were elected. They told you who they were. You said, you know what? As long as I keep lowering my taxes, I'm good. Some of that other stuff, he just talks mess. He just blusters. But think about this. We already know, and every one of our intelligence agencies has confirmed that our 2016 election was compromised. It was compromised. And now you have agents, which I'm not saying it, Moscow was saying it. Agents of Russia and helping them do their thing. See, I heard Dr. Woody Myers. I'm not even sure if it was Dr. Somebody say, no, they're repeating a Reagan quote. I had to put it together. I'm an old lady. Just, they're repeating a Reagan quote. It's not that Russia is trying to, get rid of, our Western way of drinking a lot of sugary drinks and fatty foods. No. They want to get rid of our freedoms. They want to help us establish a monarchy where we have no control, no freedom of movement. But what you have are people who are enabling this behavior by being silent, thus being complicit to the behavior. So I need you to get your blankie now, if you need it. Get your blankie. Go ahead and call who you need, because you're going to be disappointed in this process. It's happened to women on a regular basis. When we get pregnant and we got to give up our job because we pregnant. But the dude that got us pregnant, hey, he still get to keep his. It happens all the time to our Hispanic folk who can't even get documentation or forms, legal forms that they need in their native language because, we don't understand how cool it is to maybe speak more than one language. We want to demonize and ostracize the Muslim faith when our First Amendment right was freedom of religion. This is who we are, people. So stop pretending like your government is going to do the right thing. Because there has been proven, documented over centuries. We can't even say one, it's over centuries of our government not doing the right thing. And they get away with not doing the right thing because as the citizens of this citizen government, we are lazy. We don't want to get involved. We don't want to have a say. We don't want to lose our job. We don't want to jeopardize our friendship. But when you know what's right, you do what's right. So you can continue to sit back and hope and wish that Mitch McConnell's going to all of a sudden grow some you can pretend like he's actually going to care about the Constitution if you like. Or you can pretend like the Republicans or Tulsi Gabbard. I'm not sure what the hell she is. I've not been feeling her from day one, and doggone it, if she doesn't do everything on a regular basis to prove me right, and I know we got the debate coming up, so I'm getting ready to wrap this up. But don't get your hopes up, people. But we can fix this. See, you know me, I'm always come back to the optimism, baby. We can fix this. Get yourself involved. Find some candidates that you support who support the issues that you care about, and make sure that we elect them, and we can flip seats not only here in Indiana, but in Congress too. The 5th District is up for grabs, and there are amazing candidates running in the 5th District. If your guy does not come out of the primary, or if your lady doesn't come out of the primary, then you jump on board with the person that does come out of the primary, and you help them 100% because we are all on the same side. We may have different methods to get there, but we're all on the same side. Yes, we can have unity without uniformity. I learned that today. I heard it today from Nuri Muhammad from the Mosque 74 right here in Indianapolis. I heard it today. We can have unity without uniformity. We can get to where we need to get to, but we may have different methods of getting there, but we can get there. So continue to find a candidate to support, get involved, help out as much as you can, because bottom line, even though you say you don't want to be involved in politics, politics is going to be involved with you, one way or another. All right, that's my show for tonight. And thank you so much. That's the end of 2019. Y'all enjoy the holiday season. Thank you, Andy. Are you really Andy Jacobs Jr.? Or you just do that for its and giggles?
Do I do that for its and giggles? There's a story behind that we probably don't have enough time for.
Okay, but we'll talk about it later then.
Yeah.
All right. And thank y'all so much for watching the show. If you haven't done so and you want to, there's a link on the page where you can apply online for the census. And if you like what we're bringing you, please click the donate button, donate to Turn Left. We're always trying to bring you the most amazing candidates from all over our state to talk about Indiana politics from the left side of things, baby. I'm Indiana's own Dana Black. I'll holler at y'all. Y'all enjoy the holidays. Don't drink too much. It's not without me. I'm